All right, hello friends, it's silverkyle, and today we're going to be going over all the book series that I plan on reading in 2023, not necessarily complete. Some of these series have way too many books that I would be able to complete them all in this year, but at least I can at least start them. Some of them, if I stick to a schedule, I will probably complete quite a few series here. And there's also some series that have sequels that are coming out this year, so I'd like to read the first ones of those, because to me, there's nothing more exciting than reading a new book, part of a series, and you're reading it when it first came out. That I know that having a complete series is kind of nice because then you know that it's done, and you might not get like screwed over in the end because they never completed that series. But if I still find it very exciting when you're reading a new book in that series and it just came out. There's nothing that beats that. So let's dive into something. The first one that I'm probably most excited about, and that is rereading and finishing The Lord of the Rings. So The Hobbit is not part of it, but I read The Hobbit, Fellowship of the Ring, and Two Towers, and started Return of the King back when I was a teenager. And while I was reading Return of the King, I'm like, I'm just not feeling this. And I think I got distracted by either a Harry Potter book or Wheel of Time. And it was more my speed at that age. So I stopped, and I've never completed the full Return of the King. And that's blasphemy. So as an adult, I reread 2 years ago, I reread The Hobbit. And I just recently finished The Fellowship of the Ring, so I will be doing a review of this pretty darn soon. And then I want to reread Two Towers and finally finish Return of the King. That's my goal. Two Towers I might be able to start at the end of the month for January. And that's another thing that I would like to do is start having... Ooh, lights are kind of flashing. I would like to kind of talk about the books that I read the previous month. So I would like to do at the beginning of February, talk about my to be read for February for the books that I plan on reading, but also talk about the books that I read in January as well. Because I think right now I'm kind of in the groove of reading a lot of books, which is what I used to do a long time ago. I've got the itch right now, so I'm going to try to keep it going for as long as possible. All right, the next series that I plan on, that I have started actually, is The Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Leia Lee. I'm so sorry I'm mispronouncing this. I've never actually listened to how to pronounce her name. But she's got The Ninth House here. And this is book one of a series where the sequel literally just came out a few days ago, and that's Hellbent. And this to me is like Harry Potter for adults. It's not really that at all, but there's some similarities here. We've got Alex, who is the main character that is going to Yale University. And in this world, there is magic that exists, but not everybody knows about it, kind of like Harry Potter. And you're in a school, and there's a bunch of different societies, kind of like different houses. She has this power, though, in this world where when you die, some people stay behind. And all these, there's a bunch of, I think, 10 different houses in this, or 10 different societies. She's in the 9th one, obviously. And what she does is when they're doing rituals, the dead, and they're called grays in this because when people see them, they use an elixir to see them, and they look gray to them. But for her, she doesn't need to use this elixir, and she can see them and they're in color. So that's really unique, and they don't know why she has this ability. But because she can see them without using an elixir, she's very valuable because the dead try to get involved in the rituals, and that can mess up the magic completely. So she has to try to keep them out because she can see them. So that makes her very valuable, and that's why she's in the 9th house. But what happens is that there's a murder that takes place on campus that involves a non-student. And what she's trying to do is trying to figure out if it's part of the societies, if it has anything to do with the magic, or is it literally just a human murder that has nothing to do with magic at all. And I'm finding this world pretty darn interesting. So I'm looking forward to reading this and Hellbent very soon. So I'm going to hopefully read those two this month. Definitely 9th House I'll be done, and Hellbent I would like to be able to finish this month as well. Another book that I'm wanting to hopefully finish this month is Red Rising, which is book one of a trilogy, and then there's a sequel trilogy, and the third of that trilogy, which is technically book 6 in this series, is coming out at the end of June. And Mike from Mike's Book Reviews is doing kind of like a reread of the first 5 every month, basically until the release of the 6th one in June. So I'm kind of hoping that I can keep up to date with this. I'm just a few chapters in this one. This is they're on Mars, and once again, there's a bunch of different levels of society, kind of like Hunger Games or something. And we've got these characters that are at the very bottom, and they're differentiated by the colors that they are, sort of like reds. And what happens is that one of them infiltrates another one of the higher societies. That's pretty much all I know. I mean, I'm only a few chapters in, but I'm not really freaking out. Granted, I have heard that for the most part, the first Red Rising isn't necessarily the best, because after that, then the world really starts to open up. And I'm only a few chapters in, but I'm hoping to kind of dive into this. All right. Now for the most part, I'm only showing the first books in each series that I want to read, but here I grabbed a few of them because I recently read Shadows of the Empire, because I want to get back into reading what happens to the main characters, Luke, Han, and Leia. Those are the characters that I care about. So even though these aren't canon, they're called legends, to me, this is what truly happened after episode 6. Well, this one happens in between 5 and 6, but afterwards, I'm going to be eventually reading quite a bit of the stuff that happens after episode 6. And in getting there, I'm hoping to read The Mandalorian Armor, which is book 1 of Bounty Hunter Wars. And there's a trilogy of this that kind of takes place in between 5 and 6 and after 6, I believe. Same thing with the X-Wing Rogue Squadron series. There's 10 in this series, but there's only 6 of them that I think that I have to read according to the chronological timeline of when everything takes place. Another one that happens like literally right after is the Truce at Bakra. This takes like place a few days after episode 6. So that is what I'm looking forward to as well. There's another one, and I can't remember what that one is. It's like Heir to the Jedi or something like that. No, that's the new stuff. I'd have to look. Like, there's so many. I don't remember what it's actually called. Jedi. I can't remember what it's called. There's another book that I have to read that's a solo one. And then hopefully by the end of the year, I'm hopefully going to be done the Bounty Hunter Wars trilogy, the X-Wing 6 books that I have to read, Truce at Bakra, and I think there's another standalone. And what I'm wanting to get to is the Thrawn trilogy. So I got this really nice set of these 3 books, because apparently this could have been what we got as episodes 7, 8, and 9. So I'm like so excited to read this. I'm like freaking out. I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm gonna try to read maybe one Star Wars book a month. Let's go with this now. Another book that is getting a sequel this year in terms of fantasy, it comes out in February, and that the first book came out in 2022, and that is The Justice of Kings. I've heard some really good things about this, and Richard Swan is a new author, and he was paid like 6 figures for this series as a first author. That's incredible. So I've heard some really good things about this. I honestly have no idea what it's about, other than I think fantasy with, I think that he's potentially like the judge and jury or something like that, like something in that vein. I just heard that it's a good fantasy series, and it was getting a sequel this year, so I wanted to read it. Next up is another series that I had started when I was younger, and I never completed it, and that is The Wheel of Time. I've reread this book probably, like, I've read it 3 times now, and I'm going to be reading it for my 4th, because I keep wanting to restart it, because what happened was when I was as a teenager, and probably after I had tried Return of the King, I tried Eye of the World, and I was completely involved in this. I absolutely loved The Wheel of Time, and I was reading quite a few of them, and I got to book 8, and book 9 wasn't out. I finished book 8, I think, in 2 days, and I think that's where some people seem to say that it kind of slows down at that point in time, and it's not as interesting, but I still finished it in 2 days. What I think happened was I was working, because I would have been like 16 or 17, and I went and worked on a golf course for 2 days just to see if anybody would get like this specific hole in one, and they would win like $100,000 or something if they got it. Nobody did, but that was my job, so I would sit there for like 10-12 hours just looking to see if they would get it. So I brought The Wheel of Time, and I finished it in 2 days. I don't think I read the entire time, but I definitely do remember reading that book in 2 days, and at that time that I was pretty proud of myself. So that's as far as I got, and I would just want to finish this because I absolutely loved it, and I want to see how it ends. Next up, we've got the Atlas 6, and I believe... Is there 2 books out of this? Is Dark Academia I think is what it has. It also involves magic, but there's not too much that I know about this. I think that there's 2 books already out, and I think that potentially the 3rd one comes out this year. I could be wrong on that, but this is just another series that I saw, and I was reading some reviews about it, so I thought that it might be something that I'm interested in. Now, this isn't a series per se, but it's from the same author, and I want to kind of read everything that this author has written, because I had never read anything from him before, and I read his first book ever last month, liked it a lot, and that is Stephen King. So I've got Salem's Lot here, so that's definitely one of them that I'm going to be reading very soon, and I kind of want to go through his entire bibliography, just read everything that he's done. I think he's some 60 odd books. So that's going to be a long process. So that's why, like I mentioned Star Wars, and Star Wars has so many, so I'm not going to be able to finish all of that this year. That's going to be like multiple years. And same thing with Stephen King. I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this within even like 3 years. I think that, you know, even if I do 12 per, like 1 book a month of Stephen King, that's only 12 per year. So 36 in 3 years. That's and he's got like 60 some, and he's still writing as well. So that's another thing too. So I just don't know exactly how many I'll be able to finish from him. But if I do at least 6 every year for Stephen King, and then up to 12, like 1 book per month, I'll be very happy with that. And the last series that I'll talk about that I know that I'll probably be reading, like everything that I've mentioned so far, I think I'll be reading. And another one that I'm sure that I will be reading as a guilty pleasure in between a lot of this is the Hardy Boys. I absolutely love the Hardy Boys. These are like under 200 pages, and the font is massive, which is fine. It's not actually. Oh yeah, it's pretty big. And I just love this. This is kind of what I grew up with. My dad would read this to my brother and I when we would go to our family cottage in the summers, and I just remember that. And then when I was old enough to be able to read on my own, I would go borrow some from the library. And I love it. I absolutely love it. It's so simple, but there's something very nostalgic about it that I absolutely love. It's 2 brothers that are in, you know, their late teens, and they solve mysteries in Bayport, a fictional town called Bayport. I love it. So anyway, now I just want to kind of go over possible series that I'm hoping to get to potentially this year, but I'm not really focusing on them because I don't think that the sequels are necessarily coming out this year. There was rumors that some of them might, but I don't think that they are anymore for most of these years. So that is The Lies of Locke Lamour. That's book 1 of the, does it say? I think it's like The Gentleman Bastards or something like that series. I think it's underground fantasy novels. So I don't know if we're dealing with thieves or assassins, something like that. And I'm curious. I've heard some really good things about this, so that's definitely something that I'm just pretty much, if I hear that there's a good fantasy novel that a lot of people are enjoying, I'm going to look into it. So that's one that I'm looking forward to, and I think the 4th book is supposed to come out next year in 2024. I think that there was a possibility that it would come out this year, which is why I picked it up originally, and I was going to kind of try to read it at the beginning of the year, but now that the 4th one is only coming out next year, I think I have a little bit more time, so maybe at the end of the year is when I could potentially read this. Then we've got The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This, honestly, I have no idea what it's about. I don't necessarily I haven't even read the back of it. I've just heard so many people talk about John Gwynne before, and I love the covers. This is absolutely freaking gorgeous. Like, that's so epic that I was like, that's good enough. So he's got 2 books so far. The 3rd one was potentially going to be coming out this year, but I don't think it will anymore. And because I only have 2 of them to read, and there's a bunch of other books from John Gwynne as well that he had done before that I will be reading at some point, but this is the specific series that I wanted to start with because it's still ongoing, and I like diving into things that are currently ongoing. I don't know if I'll start this year. I would love to, but because of everything else that I'm reading, I don't think I'll have the time, but it's entirely possible that I restart again. I do that a lot. the Legend of Dris series. This is like book 40 something. This is the latest book in the Legend of Dris series, which is book 2 of The Way of the Drow by R.A. Salvatore. I don't know if his third book in this is coming out. I assume it's a trilogy. I could be wrong on that. But this is one of the few times that I did not hear about another book in the Legend of Dris series coming out. So I don't know when the next one is coming out, but I won't be able to get to it because it's like book 40 something. They must have, yeah, look at this. That's all the books in the series. Now, what's nice about these though is that you can start with one of them, and I would recommend starting with the beginning, which is Homeland, which is technically his 4th book that he wrote. He wrote the first 3, and then he did a Star Wars thing where he did a prequel trilogy. Then he continued on afterwards, and then you get book 7 and onward in chronological order for when he published it. But I would start with Homeland if ever you get interested in reading these. The nice things about these two is that they're not very big. They're like 400 pages each, and they're, basic fantasy, but the characters and the battle scenes I very much enjoy, and the stories are I like R.A. Salvatore's writing. This is something that I got into after reading Lord of the Rings, probably when I was like 18 or 19. I found the Legend of Dris, and I really fell in love with it. And Homeland, which is technically book 1, but it's his 4th book that he wrote because it's a prequel, is amazing. That is, to me, one of the better fantasy books ever written. And then the other books are still good. It's just that Homeland he really nailed. So that's entirely something that I could see myself just being like, okay, I want to reread this and start diving into it. I was at like book 14 because a few years ago I restarted it, but I want to reread them now and do reviews on my channel. That's essentially why I want to get back into it again and reread everything. But that shows you that because I think I've read Homeland probably once again like 3 or 4 times. I don't think I've gotten up to book 14 that often. I think this would be the 2nd time that I'm getting to book 14. So with this reread, it'll be the 3rd time, but that's fine. Next up is In the Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. So he has 2 books that he's written. I think this is like 2005 that he wrote this. Then he wrote the sequel. I don't know exactly when, sometime in between 2005 and now. And there was rumor, I feel like there's always rumors from what I gather that he might release the 3rd one, but it just never seems to come. So I'm not in a big hurry to read this. When they have finally announced it, that's when I'll dive into this. So that's another one that is a possibility. So those last few are possibilities. Everything else I think I will read, or at least start this year. And then obviously throughout, I'm just going to be reading random one-offs here, mainly mystery novels. I just recently finished Just the Nicest Couple. I did a review of that. I give it 2.5 out of 5 stars, 3 on Goodreads, and I think it's closer to a 3 because while I didn't necessarily like the characters, I did very much like the story, and I like the twists, and I like the aspect of having 2 different point of views. And I think I was a little bit too hard on the book because the characters were just doing so many dumb things that I didn't like that. But the more days that have gone by, I think that this is more a 3 out of 5 stars. So I just wanted to mention that. But I do have quite a few mystery novels that I'll be reading this year. And then I have a few odds and ends. I'm not going to show them all here. I just wanted to kind of mention them. But Sherry Lapina, this is the only book of hers that I have not read yet. I really like her. She's a Canadian author, so I got to represent the Canadians. She's got like maybe 6 novels out now. She does have one coming out in July later this year, so I'll definitely be looking forward to that. But I do want to finish this one before I read her new one. They're all just mystery thriller type novels, and they have nothing to do with each other. But I just want to have her entire set done before I dive into her new one. Another one that I know I'm gonna be reading very soon is Where the Crawdads Sing. I have no idea what this is about. I just had heard good things about it, that they had made a movie about it, and my dad had it on his kitchen table. I was like, I haven't seen you with a book in the longest time, and somebody had recommended it to him. So I decided that I would get it, and my brothers got it. Stop that light. Okay, I don't even know if you can see it flickering every once in a while. But anyway, so I'm definitely really excited to dive into this. I don't know what it's about. I'm not going to look it up. And yeah, I'm hoping to start that soon because my brother and my father, they just need to start it. Once they start it, I'm going to dive right into it, but I have to kind of wait until they start. And another one that did catch my eye is A Man Called Ovi. I believe, I think that they're making a movie of this with Tom Hanks, and I think they called it A Man Called Otto, I believe. But this to me seemed really interesting. I've always seen Frederick Bachman as an author, but I've never read anything from him, and I've heard some really good. Stop. Okay, it's like when I talk, it flickers. I don't even know if you can stop that. There, it's brighter here. I'm just gonna end the video. Stop. There, we're just gonna end it in darkness. It's annoying. I just don't want to. I've been talking for 20 minutes. For the few of you that have gotten to the end, please let me know in the comments below. I don't know how many people actually make it to the end, because I don't necessarily make it to the end of a lot of videos unless I'm really interested in the person. But the light's out. This is the last book that I want to talk about. I've got a few of those that I'm going to be reading throughout the year. That's everything that I'm planning to read in 2023. So thank you all for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you are planning to read this year, and if there's any of this that caught your eye that now you're interested in or that you would like to push me towards. So either way, thank you all for watching. You've been bearded in Beardage.